We're your hosts,
Aaron Bacus
and Jason Kindler.
We like to sit down with our guests to hear their journey, their challenges, and how they impact the local community.
So grab a seat, tune in, and let's get inspired by Jacksonville's everyday workforce.
Welcome to Hometown Jax. Coach, I am so happy to have you here, man. I'm glad I could finally connect with you. Our people got with your people, and we finally worked something out.
Wow, my people are me, unfortunately. It is. It's it's a long year, and that especially at a place like Bowles, you wear a lot of hats.
Yes,
and so, but being able to find time to make this happen, I'm excited that.
We're excited to have you, Coach Matt Toblin with Bowles, very well known, respected, successful high school coach, football coach. So I'm really excited to break down your career, what you're doing, and kind of some thoughts on that. So, kind of doing some research on you. You're the third coach in Bowles history.
No.
Behind Corky Rogers?
So, in terms of wins?
No, in terms of actually coaches.
There were some before. So, we went Coach Rogers.
Okay.
And then, so before him, there was a string of coaches.
Okay.
He was
but
there.
But you filled his shoes.
So, when he stepped down, Wayne Belger took over, a long-term assistant who actually paid for him, took over for 2 years.
Okay.
And then when he stepped down, I got the opportunity to become the head coach.
Because you were at Ponte Vedra, that's where we hooked up. And I do have to shout you out right off the gate because you gave my son Kyle a job right out of the gate. My son went to Ponte Vedra, wasn't the football type, but liked to be around football and would do any kind of technical stuff for you, fly drones or do videos. So we really appreciate you having him involved in your program then and also Bowles now.
So at the first point, I was doing you a favor. Now the favor is I'm the one receiving the favor. He does an unbelievable job. And you're right. I mean, the technology has changed. You know, back when I was a player, you know, if there was film, right. It was someone with a camcorder, and now he's flying a drone over practice and filling out paperwork with NAS Jax to make sure that we're legal. and so he has been a blessing for us.
Oh, that's great. Well, he enjoys it. Well, I want to get into your history a little bit. I want to get into what you're doing now and coach. And I kind of want to talk a lot about kids and how you're relating to them and how you coach them and lead them. A lot of challenges today that they weren't before. So 4 Final Fours as a Bowles coach. And then at Ponte Vedra, you won, right? Or I can't remember exactly.
So at Ponte Vedra, we were runner-up.
Okay.
That we have been the bridesmaid too many times. And that so at Ponte Vedra, we made it as a runner-up. We played American Heritage, who that team, Patrick Curtain, Tyson Campbell, they ended up having 5 first-round draft picks.
Wow!
On that high school team, and we lost, on the last drive of the game.
And you've been so close, and then 4 times with Bowles.
Yes, sir. And so 4 Final Fours, 2 runner-ups, and ultimately we are proud of the consistency of the, hey, look, we're always in that conversation. That we always have an opportunity to talk at the beginning of the year about look, we have a legitimate chance to talk about winning a state title, but we have fallen short. And you know what? At most places, and I'm good with this, but at most places they'd be like, oh, that's amazing, 4 Final Fours, and at Bowles, I get the pat on the shoulder. Don't worry, you'll get you'll get one eventually, because that's the standard.
Yes,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
You have huge shoes to fill from Corky before you. How many state championships did he win?
10.
10. Oh my gosh.
Yes, sir.
Well, you've got some work to do. You still look young. You got a chance, right?
Yeah, we do. And I think when you said something interesting, and I think that's, you said fill his shoes. And the only reason I was able to accept this job is because I know that I cannot fill his shoes. That I think, in life, this is kids, this is me, this is everyone. In life, if I tried, because there's a big shrine to Coach Rogers when we walk in, and if I tried every day to measure myself against him and say well, I got to do this and I got to do that, and living in that shadow, I would make myself miserable. And so the only way I was able to accept the job is full well knowing, look, I'm okay with being second place.
Right.
If I am in second place, then I had an amazing career. I had an amazing career at Bowles, and I had a great impact on a bunch of kids and coaches and left a legacy that I could be proud of. But I think that is one of the things that has made it possible, is I'm comfortable knowing that, look, I'm number 2. There's nothing wrong with that.
Great point. Great point. It's like being Michael Jordan's son or something like that.
Yeah. I can make myself miserable trying to catch him, or I can just be like, hey, look, let's shoot for really good.
Right. Well, I know, at Bowles, I feel like a lot of your seasons started off rocky, like to get to that Final Four, which is such a testament to you and your coaching staff. I feel like I feel even last year or maybe the year before, it's like you're having a couple losses right out of the gate and you're like, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, I think part of that is going to be again, at Bowles is different than other places, and that the commitments to excellence and the overriding goal of what we're trying to do here. Like, we're trying to build a championship program, and that we're not trying to pad our record. We're not trying to look good on paper. We're trying to be good in real life. Mm-hmm. And that ultimately, in order to do that, you've got to challenge yourselves. You've got to make sure that you put yourself in we call it a briar patch. Coach Howard, who's my high school head coach, used to say you got to fight your way out of a briar patch. Like, that's how you're going to figure out who you are and how tough you are and what you can do. And so, and everyone has a different way to say that. Rough seas make good sailors. And so the idea is that we have consistently tried to go out and challenge ourselves early in season, and we don't want to lose, but we're not going to protect ourselves from a loss. And so we're going to go challenge ourselves and find out. And ultimately, that's what we feel like has made us really tough to beat in November and December.
Interesting.
Is that we're willing to take one on the chin in August.
So you have a lot of control over your schedule.
So what happens in high school football is the state will give you your district schedule. And so that district schedule will give us, hey, look, here are the teams that you need to play in order to make the playoffs. And those are typically booked towards the back end of the season. And so that first half of the season gives us the opportunity to say, hey, look, let's go find out how good we can be.
Interesting. And the way that they've redone the playoffs and all of that has made it, I don't know why to use the word easier, but you can go into it with some losses. Yeah. It's not life or death on every single one.
Correct. As long as you're playing really good teams, mm-hmm. They would see us, losing to a really good program as would not take a hit to our ratings. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you beat a really bad program, but you don't beat them enough, and then you go down. And so it's one of those situations where look, and you're right. We're gonna be okay at the end. We're gonna be okay at the end. We're gonna get in, and so let's just go ahead and find out.
Get tougher. Get in that briar patch. Well, you're a local Jacksonville guy, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
Went to Mandarin.
Yes, sir.
And you played there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Grew up in Jacksonville the whole time.
I did. I grew up in Jacksonville the whole time. My parents, grew up in Miami and moved up here, and so I was born and raised in Jacksonville. Okay. Grew up in the Mandarin area. Went to Crown Point because before all the Mandarin high schools and Mandarin middles were built, and then went to Mandarin High School. Initially played for Ricky Medlock, who was an amazing coach at Mandarin at that time, and had won a bunch of games, had a bunch of really good players, and that. But then my junior year, he stepped down, and Craig Howard was appointed as the head coach. And Craig Howard and me would go on to have a long-term relationship where I would serve on his staffs, and has been a huge part of kind of who I am as a person, as a coach.
Yeah. Because, you were there, you were the Ponte Vedra head coach, did great there. I didn't realize you coached in college, Southern Oregon University.
Yes, sir.
Defensive back coach. That's awesome. And then came back, Clay High School head coach, Nice High School defensive coach during Tebow time.
Yes, sir.
So what was that like? I hear the stories of how they literally had to bus in more stands so there was people to fit. It was just mayhem.
There were a couple games. There were a couple games where they would bring over the stands from either the baseball stadiums or they would get it from somewhere else. And so those were some really neat environments. I think, within the county just at that time, it was, there's no disrespect to the teams that today, but at that point in time, you had St. Augustine and Bartram Trail and Nice, and every single one of us was competing for state championships. That each of those teams might have one loss on the roster, and it was to each other.
Right.
And so there was a year where we played Bartram Trail when Taylor Southern was the head coach, and we beat them somewhat handily, and then they go on and play for a state title. Wow. And so there were some really, really good matchups. And then as you move through the playoffs, obviously the attention gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, and then Tebow just has the huge spotlight.
He does. And I think that's one of the ones, to be honest with you, thank God social media wasn't what it is now, you know, and like, I don't know how he managed that, to be honest, that much attention as a high school kid back then. If there was NIL deals and social media, like, I don't know how.
Well, we'll definitely get into that because I'm really curious on what you have to say about that. And then Fleming Island, offensive coach, and you're a psychology teacher at Bowles too?
Yes, sir.
So you know exactly what I'm thinking right now?
No, that's not how it works. But no, I've always taught psychology.
Okay.
I got
well,
lucky.
what a great transition to being a coach. I mean,
it is. Yes. And I think, you know, all psychology is not, like, I'll be honest, I went through all this stuff. I was not going to be a good therapist. Like, I'll be honest, I was not going to be a good therapist. Like, empathy, I'm an empathetic person, but I'm a little bit of a fixer.
Right.
And so, like, this is what you need to do. And so, but using those things, and most of it is about motivation and emotion. Like, understanding, like, kids' emotions and motivation, that is the part that blends perfectly into kind of what we're doing in the coaching world, because ultimately that's what every coach is doing, regardless of the schematics and all that stuff. Like, that's great, but finding a way to help your kids navigate emotionally what they're going through, the ups and downs and everything that goes on through a season, being able to manage the emotions of the team as a group, and then obviously we talk about from a motivational standpoint, pushing all the right buttons.
And you went to FSU?
I did.
Okay, you still a Seminole fan?
I am. The long pause was this. I struggle because my initial thought is always college football, and I don't know if this will make sense, but as a high school, as a football coach, I watch games differently, and that I find it hard to just openly, blankly root for someone. I'm always analyzing.
You're breaking it down. You're using it for your.
And so I enjoy baseball because I don't know anything about baseball. I enjoy watching soccer. I watch Premier Soccer because I have no idea what's going
hilarious.
on. I'm just yelling at the
about
screen.
That. Like, it's too stressful for you to watch.
It's stressful, but I don't enjoy it. I want to rewind and watch it again. What was that? What coverage were they in? Like, what were they doing there? Like, I want to watch it. And so if there's a sport I don't understand, I just have fun.
That's funny. And do you have any kids?
I do. I have two wonderful children.
Awesome.
Aria, a 9-year-old, and then Zayden, a 7-year-old.
Awesome. That's great. So was football part of your DNA from day one?
So depending on who sees this, they're going to have jokes and stories. So I always loved football, and I loved the strategy of football.
From the beginning. As a young kid, you can remember it.
Yeah, I would be sitting in algebra class, and I'd be drawing football plays. And then the teacher would come up and tap me on the shoulder and try to get me back on what I was supposed to be doing. And so if I still bump into high school friends and middle school buddies, and they're like, dude, you're doing exactly what you wanted to do.
It's funny you say that. I watched an interview of you before this, and that's what you said.
And so, I think I always liked the strategy of football. I don't know that I always wanted to be a football coach. There were definitely time periods where I was like, I think I want to be in the FBI. I think I want to do this. I think I want to do that. But ultimately, like, all the roads always continued back to this. And I think, like, to be honest with you, like, the strategy of football was only so rewarding. Like, I do, like, it's the relationships that you can build, it's the impact that you can have on others, that when I got into it, really, that's what keeps me coming back. And that's what makes it so important. Like you mentioned earlier, like the number of people on our staff that played for us back in the day, that were on those niche teams, that are still a part of it. Like, that's really what makes football such an awesome experience.
Well, it's interesting you say strategy because, talking to friends of mine that are coaches, and, the strategy plays a huge part. Like, the strategy and the discipline, you can beat way more talented teams. You have a chance to do that.
And I would say this, like, and it's I don't know how you don't like to quote Urban Meyer much anymore, but but there's still a lot of very good stuff. And he would say, listen, talent alone, the talent alone out of Florida, where you have tons of talent, or at Bowles, talent alone will win you 6 to 7 games. And that, from having the right strategy and discipline and playing hard, that's going to get you to 8 or 9. And that, like, what are the little things that move you up? Because you're separating yourself from everybody else. Like, everybody else can have talent. Like, who's going to have the discipline to do all the things that nobody else wants to do? Who's gonna have this? Who's gonna have that? And that the strategy plays a role in it. But ultimately, like, it is about forming a group of guys that are willing to sacrifice and do what's better for us, maybe not better for me.
Right.
And that if you can get kids, and there's the psychology part. If you can get kids to do that, get parents to buy into that, get the whole program to buy into that, then you have a chance to be special. That the sum of your talent is only so much. It's about getting that buy-in from everybody that's a part of it. And then the strategy, plays out.
Sure. Do you still wear a tie during the games?
I do.
Okay, Coach, I got to tell you, I feel so bad for you because it looks like you're dripping in sweat every time.
I am. And so I mentioned Craig Howard, my high school head coach. He was he was a tie guy.
Okay.
And when I first got a head coaching job, well, he told me the reason he wears a tie on game day, and he tells the team, he tells everybody, is that you dress up for things that are important. You dress up for things that are important. And Friday night football is important. And so he wears the tie, and I get my first head coaching job at Clay, and I'm going to honor Coach Howard, and I want everyone to know, like, hey, football's important, so I get the tie. And then I continued to wear it, and I got the bowls, and I was going to stop, because you don't need to wear the tie. You don't need to tell anyone football's important at bowls. Like, there's a big sign with all of the state championships, like, football's important.
Right.
I don't need to wear the tie for people to know it's important. But then Craig passed away, and that decided that the right move for me to do would be to continue to carry it on. And so I'll continue to do it for him.
Well, it's special for sure. But I just like, man, let me go take off that tie. He just looks miserable.
There are days. There are days where I question. I question the what I'm doing. But no, and it is, and it's important, and so.
Well, it makes you unique for sure, because that's a dying breed for sure.
Yes, sir.
I keep remembering Tom Landry. You might be too young for Tom Landry.
Yeah.
So going off topic, can you remember a crazy play or just something crazy that pops into your mind that happened during a game, during any of your coaching stints? Is there anything that just comes to mind like, I cannot believe that happened? I've never seen that before.
So this one actually does not go good for us. I won that, and I think that's as a coach.
Well,
I think that's one of the ones
resonates.
like all the good things we did, just like but the bad ones were the ones that stick. But there's one that I have. So St. Augustine and Nice, the Tebow days was an amazing rivalry, and that at Nice we would probably spend 10 minutes every single day on St. Augustine. Like it didn't matter if we were playing them. Week 5, week 1, we're working on St. Augustine, and they were probably doing the same. And so those guys had a 2-year tendency. They line up like this in this formation with this. This is the play.
Interesting.
And it's almost like they set us up. And so we would see, and here we are.
So they set you up.
Oh, they set us up.
Oh,
they 100% set us up.
That is hilarious.
And so we're in a game. The weather's terrible, and it's gonna be a low scoring affair. And they get in the formation, and we're screaming it out. Like, we are screaming it out. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. And they fake it, pass, touchdown. And I think that's when you talk about strategy standpoint, like your job is to work the plan, work the tendency, work the numbers, but you always gotta be ready for the unexpected. And like, that's the thing that you learn, the lessons that you learn, from that. Like, and sometimes you gotta learn them the hard way.
Oh, man.
But there's always
that
those
is just
things.
The funniest thing though, that they set you up on that play.
For 2 years.
I mean, how much time and effort the setup took, and then the exact implementation moment worked.
Yeah, and there was a trap, and they decided, and that's the thing, like, you're St. Augustine and we're Nice, like, you don't spring that on, anybody,
right?
Like, you've been setting us up, like, we're gonna spring it on those guys, and they did an unbelievable job, and I give them credit, and that's part of it, and like, that's the funny thing when you talk about the strategy, like, not to ramble too much, but part of it is hey, look, do they know that we know? Do they know that we know that they know? And so playing against friends. Coaching against friends, now that those guys, we've all grown up together and gone through stuff, like, that is a frustrating deal, because you're watching and you're like, hey, they know that we know this. Like, so are they not going to do this? And so
have you reversed the strategy?
Yeah, we try. But those guys usually get it.
So you mentioned a couple coaches. So, like, who were your mentors and who did you admire growing up? I know you mentioned the one late coach, friend of yours, but...
So, I mean, I think the people who had the impact on me, I think, Coach Medlock, ran when I was there from a discipline standpoint. It was we're gonna play harder, and we're not gonna be super complicated, and we're gonna win through execution. We're gonna win by doing the simple things right. And then I actually, and then Coach Howard was more of a, he's more of a showman, like wants cool, have fun, and that. But a huge part of what his was that this is a relationship-driven process, and learning from the two of them about those ways to meld together what a team should look like. And then from a football standpoint, there's too many people to name. Like you try to acquire from everyone. I think, I was a student assistant, graduate assistant at Florida State, and that.
What time period was that? Like,
so I was there. Mark Richt's last 2 years.
Okay.
So I'm terrible with years.
Me too.
Mark Richt's last 2 years before he left to go to.
What do you remember?
So
some
we
big players that were there then?
Yeah. So we lost to we beat Virginia Tech and we lost to Oklahoma.
Okay.
In the national championship games.
Wow.
And so I worked with the receivers with Jeff Bowden, and that Mark Richt said something that super stuck with me. And that. There's a lot of teams that were doing a bunch of stuff great schematically, and he was like, listen, like our players are better than the other players in the ACC, and that we need to let them play fast. And like sometimes the best thing you can do as a coach is not overcoach. Like don't football is an easy game made complicated by coaches. And sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of your guys' way. Now you got to be sound, you got to do those things. Sometimes it's like, hey, look, let's get out of their way and let them play.
So when you always hear them comment on TV and stuff like that, there's truth to that. It's like, well, this coach is letting him do what he wants to do. Like, well, I don't know.
There's times where the rules are becoming less gray in football. I mean, I think again, when you and I grew up, like a 10-yard dig was you're going to go 10, you're going to turn in, and that's exactly like the timing of it. Like that's the way it's going to look. It's going to be just like this is how we're going to, like the execution that we talked about, like from like now there's more free flow. It's more like there are times where in the throw game, like a lot of people are reading a bunch of different things, and like there is still parameters to what we want from people, but there's more freedom within that.
Does that make it more complicated for the quarterback?
And so yes and no. From the old version, the timing standpoint is like your foot hits the ground, he's going to break, the ball better come out of your hands. There is still a lot of that timing stuff, but sometimes they'll shrink down the reads. Like they'll make it, hey, look, we don't have to be right. Like this guy's going to make us right by the route he converts, the way that he does this. And so there's definitely, it's rep intensive. There's a lot of timing that goes on to getting everybody on the same page, but there's definitely has been more freedom than there probably was.
Would you say you're more offensive or defensive minded?
I go back and forth, but I'm probably more defensive minded.
Okay.
I'm probably more defensive minded.
Is your coaching style where you let the other coaches pretty much handle it, you're kind of overseeing, or how does that work?
It fluctuates based on the needs of each kind of team and each program. And so I like to try to be the finger in the dam. Like where do I need to be? Where do I need to be? But I think that there's times where I've spent more with other groups or whatever, but ultimately, like it comes down to, you want to hire great people and let them do their job, and when you gotta get involved, you get involved. We want to back off, and so I think that's
so your offense and defensive coordinator are calling the plays for that.
It again, it's fluctuated. It has fluctuated based on again the needs of that team and what needs to happen. There are times where I've called the offense. There's times where I've been more involved in the defense. It just depends on each group.
Well, interesting.
We'll get back to the story in just a second, but while you're listening, here's something you should know if you live in Northeast Florida. If you're self-employed and trying to buy a home, it's not as hard as you might think. We work with business owners, freelancers, and creatives every single day. People who don't fit the traditional housing mold, and we're here to let you know that we have real loan programs that make homeownership possible. We've helped tons of local business owners and creatives get approved using flexible loan options that work for them and their business. First Coast Mortgage Funding is proud to sponsor Hometown Jax right here in Jacksonville.
Well, we kind of talked about technology and maybe the style of the game, but what are some other things you feel like has changed in high school other than the things we're going to get into, the social media and all that? But like, is the technique of the game different? Are the referees different? Or is it still pretty much the same game.
So what I would say, football's still football. I mean, I think growing up, when I was a high school senior, there were probably 7 wing tee teams on our schedule, there's nothing wrong with the wing tee. It's a very, very good system, but it's based on running the football. Mm-hmm. And that I think coaches, whether because it's a better scheme or because it's been cooler to throw the ball and play in space and do all those things. And I think, so football has definitely changed that way. I mean, I think when we first started coaching, we would be like, look, load the box, dare them to throw. Mm-hmm. And nowadays you're like, look, if you dare them to run, dare them to run, like dare them to figure out how to run. I think the coaching of skill positions has gotten better and better and better and better. And I think coaching of the interior positions has gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Linemen are probably not as good as technicians as they were back in the day. Like you played a team that ran, trap and like they could run it down your throat. And nowadays, like it's different.
Interesting.
And so I think it has changed a little bit.
Do you think the skill positions, kids are just training a lot harder and specializing earlier in their career, kind of? That helps? Or?
I think that's part of it. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. And I think, and I'm not saying that that's good for the game.
Right.
I think that the ability to, I keep referring back to like we were growing up, and it's not the good old days, but like when football season ended, I went to wrestling or basketball or baseball. Now, like when football season ends, like we go to 7-on-7 season, and we're throwing and we're running routes and we're doing all that stuff, we're developing. And a lot of those linemen, the things that they're able to do is they pass rush, because you can't, all the run game stuff that you want to work, you can't do that in the offseason.
Do you encourage your guys to play other sports if they want to?
We do. Mm-hmm. Something like 80% of our kids play in other sports.
Oh, wow.
Like we do think, I'm still a believer that you need to play other sports from a physical health standpoint.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like that I've read and heard a lot about it. The rise in injuries of Achilles or whatever could be attributed to specializing in one sport.
100%.
Interesting.
But I also think from like a mental health standpoint too, like we're talking about kids, they need a break from that and move to something else. And I think the other thing that happens is when they're playing is like, look, I want you in, we talk about how to handle like the emotions, but I want you in situations where you're winning and losing. I want you in situations where it's not like I want you playing baseball, and I want you with the bases loaded, full count. And how do you handle that situation? Because the more you're in that situation, the better you're going to handle it come our turn.
Yeah.
Now you got to lift and you got to sprint year round. You got to develop as an athlete. That can never stop. But you don't need to be playing full-time 7-on-7, full-time quarterback, mechanic thrower. You don't need to do that year round to get ahead.
Right.
Because at some point, like there are drawbacks, and at some point, like general athleticism plays a bigger role.
Sure.
And so I think that those things are super important.
What role do parents play in high school athletes?
So I think that's like this is
because a lot of parents want to know. I'm very interested in your opinion.
I'm not saying
no
I'm
role
right.
is okay answer.
I'm not saying I am right. And this is more psychology than it is football.
Yeah.
So this is a general. How am I get in trouble for this? This is a general observation. But you back me up on this. You tell me. Growing up, my mom or dad did not see themselves as responsible for my happiness at all.
Or involved in your athletics. I'm talking about me. I mean, you just go do it, and maybe I'll catch a game, and that's good.
And if I wasn't happy about something, my dad would say, "Well, what are you going to do about it?"
Right.
If I was bored, my dad would say, "Oh, you're bored? I'll find something for you to do. Like you better go find something else. I got something for you to do." Uh-huh. And his self-esteem was never wrapped up around how I was doing. Like his self-esteem was never attached to my progress. He was just like, he was my dad. That was his job.
That's such a good point, Matt. Like, and I'm sure I'm a little guilty of it. But like the parent's self-esteem wrapped up in the kid. What a good point.
And I am too. Like we all are. I mean, my daughter was in the school play when she was in first grade. She's in the school play and her part's coming up, and I feel myself tensing up because I'm like, don't mess up. And that I don't know that it was where, I'm going to be embarrassed. I was going to feel for her. Right. I was going to feel for her, and I think that that's okay. But like we have to find like that. That's not the way our parents were.
Right.
And there's pros and cons. Like I'm not saying that we need to go back to where your parents are like, look, I don't care what happens to you. But I think what has happened now is we are so invested. We are so invested, and that the rise of parents saying we, when describing their kids' athletic performance outcomes, we and not this is what my child is doing. And so I think that is part of it. And so they're more involved, which is not a bad thing. Where we get into an issue, again, from a psychology standpoint, where we get into an issue is sometimes as parents, and I have concerns about doing this myself as a parent, is making sure we differentiate how I feel about my kid from them being good at sport. Because sometimes they get in a situation, I talk about my kids in the psychology class, my parents tell me all the time, like, they don't care. They love me no matter what. But then the first thing out of their mouth is how come, you didn't do this, or how come that didn't happen? Mm-hmm. And so like we show them, we tell them, like, this is what I care about. And so that is the dealing with the mental health of parents, athletes, everyone involved in the process, because our self-esteems are starting to get wrapped up in how we're doing.
It's very interesting.
If I lost a game, I'd cry. I was upset because I lost, but I didn't feel like I let anybody down.
Right.
And like we do now.
Right. So what's different between back then and now, you're not only managing the kids and the kids players, but the parents. So like, I'm assuming you're kind of setting parameters, proactively reaching out. So, you can kind of maintain that as good as possible.
And I think you have to have open and honest communication.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference. Like, my dad would never have called the coach to talk to him, because like at the end of the day, it was my job, it was my business. Like, I'd handle it if I wanted to. And now the parents are involved. Like, they are involved. I can be like, I wish the good old days were like, I can put my head in the dirt and be like, it's not, but they are.
Yeah.
And so you have a choice. Like, you can let them not know what's going on and get filled with angst about what's going on, or we can communicate. And so we try to have an open door policy and try to make sure that we're updating with the kids and make sure they know what the plan is, so the parents know what the plan is. But like, obviously there's hiccups along the road, and not everyone always, but like, that is one. And it's tough. There's no right answers.
Well, it's sports are competitive, and there's people that play and there's people that don't.
Yeah.
And that's tough sometimes for whoever's involved. And I think maybe you could probably speak to this, like, just the perceived pressure or whatever to get a scholarship. It's like, that's not a normal thing. Like, it's a very special thing. You know? Yeah. I don't remember when I was going to school, like that was as big of a deal as it is now.
No.
But you're at a school though that does very well for players, and they get recognized. Yeah. So that's got to be a tough thing.
It's a double-edged sword. You're correct. And you're right. Back in the day, like, there was no social media where I was like, well, how come this kid got this? And how come this kid got this? And so again, this is going to be more psychology than anything else, but like, everybody knows that comparison is the killer of all joy. Everybody knows that, right? Yet we go on there, and that's all we do.
That's right.
And we go on there, and what ends up happening is that we start to, what we talk to our players about is this. Like, look, if you make the game-winning shot, we go play basketball, pick up basketball, we're 3-on-3, you make the winning shot, are you a better basketball player now? If you miss it, are you worse now? It's like, I'm the same person. You go to a camp and somebody offers you a scholarship, are you a better player now? If you go and you perform really well and they don't offer you for whatever reason, your arms aren't long enough, because the metrics matter so much. I'm not tall enough that this happens. My hand size is too small, whatever it is. Like, are you now a worse player? Okay. And the idea is that we're allowing too many outside sources to validate us and give us, hey, this is what it's all for. And I had this argument with a Bulls athlete one time. Like, let's say you accomplish all of your goals, you're getting better, you're doing all this stuff, but like, you don't get your first choice from an offer standpoint. And they go like, well, then none of it was worth it. And the idea is like, look, again, me growing up and trying to, the idea is the reason you pursue sports is who you become along the way. Like, I am more able to be a great parent because of all the lessons I learned throughout my sports experiences.
Sure.
And the idea that the guiding principle, or the only thing that matters, is, did I get what I wanted in the end?
Right.
And you can't run your business like that. What happens if your employees are like, look, the only thing that matters is that I get this?
You gotta experience failure. It doesn't always work out. And then, let's be honest too. I mean, not all college scholarships are cracked up to be. Like, if it's a full-time job I didn't get a scholarship, but I talked to a lot of people that didn't get their first choice and they go and they're like, man, I'm miserable.
Yeah.
I'm not playing.
This is not
I'm doing it. All my friends are partying. They're doing their thing. So you kind of have to make that evaluation. It's okay to go to college without a scholarship.
100%. 100%. And that's where you go through so we talk about this because this has become a topic. Like, we would not talk about this 10 years ago, but now it's a legitimate conversation. And so, like, the ultimate currency is happiness, right? Because everything that we do, every choice that we make, at the end of the day, if we continue to go through like, well, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Was, well, I thought it would make me happy. Why do parents like give their kids and take them all the training and do all that stuff? Because, well, I think that it'll make them happy. Like, they're going to get a scholarship, like they'll be happy. And that ultimately, like, we go through that whole exercise. And this is where like kids in my psych class will well up and start to cry when we go through and we say like, well, guess what happens? Like, how long did you celebrate that success when you finally got it? You finally got into Princeton. What an unbelievable achievement. How long did you celebrate? How long were you happy for? About 24 hours.
Right.
And then what? More work.
Right.
And that the idea of this idea that there's some sort of gratification on, this window coming where once I achieve this, like, happiness is going to just flow over me. Like, that's not it. It's the process. It's the fun. It's the doing all. It's all the stuff that the reasons that we did it when we were little. Like, that's got to be it.
Enjoy the process is the happiness, not the outcome.
100%. Because the outcome, when you get there, it's never worth it.
Right.
Never worth it. Mm-hmm. Those kids that go off to school and they realize this is a full-time job. I thought when I got here, I'd be happy. And all I realized was more work.
So you get that feedback a lot.
100%.
Interesting.
And we tell every single kid on our program, they sit down and they listen to me and they all like, Coach Toblin, you're a liar. We sit there and we go through and we go like, look, this is the coolest it's ever going to be.
Right.
This is the coolest. Playing high school football with your friends, this is the coolest it's ever going to be. You're going to go play in front of 60,000 people, 7,000 people in Death Valley. I'm telling you, this is the coolest it's ever going to be. And they're like, Coach, you're an idiot.
Right.
And then they come back as seniors and they come back and they graduate. They got to come back. They talk to the team and they go like, look, he wasn't lying. And then even the kids will be like, he told them to say that. No one believes it.
It's
they
so
get there
funny you say that because I had Mark Edwards on the podcast a month ago who has gone to the ultimate and won the Super Bowl. He said Friday Night Lights was my best memories.
Yeah.
Like, and he's done everything.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that you say that.
Because all of those things, when it becomes an outcome-based transaction, those victories last 24 hours. I mean, we won a state title at Nice with Tebow. And by the time we celebrated in the locker room, by the time we got on the bus, we were already talking about next year. Like, that's how long it lasted.
How do you motivate young kids with all of the different things? Now, I know you have your players that are playing, but how do you motivate the ones that aren't? Because I would think that's where the real skill comes into play as a coach.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't getting the playing time and you keep them bought in.
So that's harder than it's ever been before.
Right.
I think that's harder than it's ever been before. And I get it, from a parent, a player perspective, like a return on investment. If I wasn't doing this, would I have more time to practice lacrosse? Would I have more time to practice something else? Would I have more time to focus on my grades? And so much of that involvement is starting to what is the return on investment? If I'm doing all this work and I'm not playing, like, is this worth it? And so it is difficult. And ultimately, like, morale comes down to what I'm doing is important. Mm-hmm. Like, if as soon as I feel like what I'm doing at this job, at this whatever, what I'm doing doesn't matter, then we have a problem. Mm-hmm. And so how do we convince kids that what they're doing is important and matters? And we're not tricking them. We have to. So as a coach, as a staff, and as our leaders in a program, like, we need to make sure that we are identifying the paths to success. Mm-hmm. That it's not 100% Naeem Burrows when he catches an 8-yard touchdown. Like, he's the one in the paper. He's the one that does that. Like, that's the way it goes. I got it. But we scored that touchdown. And there was lots of people who were part of that ingredient. A lot of people who are part of that moment. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that we understand that, hey, and we are able to do that. I think that's one. So we have to, and whatever that role is, like, you got to own it. Like, if that role is, hey, look, I'm on kickoff, I'm on special teams, I'm a backup, I'm a senior, like, backup, like, whatever it is, but I have a role, I have a job, and I'm going to own that job.
Do you have cuts for your team? And so you don't have cuts, but the people that I'm assuming you have conversations with people and let them know what the future looks like. Whether it doesn't really involve much playing, and they got to know that.
We do. And so as we're honest, as we go throughout that process, that we are, and there are definitely times where there's a kid that we unfortunately, like, you're not going to play very much.
Right.
And that it could be times where it's a great kid who's done everything we've ever asked him to, but he's just not going to play very much. And so part of that is trying to find a role that where you can matter. Mm-hmm. It might not be the role you want, but
there's a lot of value in being on a team, being in sports like we talked about, and just simply being busy as a kid. I think there's value to that, because what's the alternative? Video games all day and getting involved in other things. I mean, I just think there's a value in that.
And I think not just that. I think there are two things I would say on that one. Is number one, like, when you give kids a bunch of free time, it's not like we've had kids leave because, like, oh, I'm gonna do better in school, and they end up, because they have so much free time, they do nothing.
Right.
And so sometimes that sense of urgency of, hey, look, practice ends, I got to do this, like, helps with some of the organization. But I also think, again, there's lessons to be learned on how to live life. Mm-hmm. And that if you leave our program, and our belief is, regardless of how much you played or the impact that you had, statistically, like, you had an impact on us and the people around you, but also we impacted you. And that hopefully, again, like, that makes you better at whatever job or that you're going to deal with. You've learned the lessons of, Coach Howard used to say, look, tragedy is not losing a game. That's practice of tragedy. Tragedy is a random Tuesday where something happens that you can't fix.
Right.
What do? Mm-hmm. And that you unfortunately learn along your timeline in athletics, like, hey, there's going to be times where I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do and I'm still going to lose.
Right.
And I can't feel sorry for myself. I got to go. Like, I got to go. And, like, I would be a bad husband, dad, like, business leader, all of those things, if I wasn't like, look, like, we're going to go. Like, we're going to do everything we can. And if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, we're going to try again.
Yeah.
And I think you can't learn that from anything else.
Oh, absolutely.
Other than athletics.
Absolutely. Athletics extremely important from a lot of that. Switching gears a little bit is, do you ever have a kid that comes onto your program and you're like, oh my gosh, like, it's just next level, and you just know it instantly?
Yeah.
Maybe even if he's raw or whatever, but you've had enough experience and seen enough to know, like, that kid could go all the way.
Yeah.
You can see that right off the gate.
So there's, I think you can see, so potential is a curse word on our program.
Yeah.
Like, we tell the kids, potential is a curse word, because that means you could be good, but you're not.
Right.
And so there are times where you can see that possibility. Now, obviously, when you see that possibility mixed
with... Is that
with,
from a giftedness of athleticism generally?
Yeah. There's going to be, like, and it's weird to say it, but and it's every position. A lineman walks in and you're like, look, that kid's got a chance. Like, that kid's got a chance. Like, here are the reasons why they're big. And so much of it, like, it is, like, and when you talk about the college shot, it's so much, it's DNA. Like, it's
right.
It is, college coaches are going to come in and they're going to be like, look, he's this tall, he's this long, he's this, these are the perimeters we're looking for. And that obviously, like, that plays a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. And that, and so there are definitely times where kids have come in raw, not raw, where you can be like, he's got a chance. Now, they don't all make it, because there's, the world's filled with talented people. Like, are they going to be able to squeeze everything out of it? Because you got to climb yourself up to that ability. And so when you find those kids that you're like, look, this kid's super talented, he's super diligent, his attention to detail, like, all those things, then, like, you're like, look, this is going to work.
Interesting.
And we're blessed to have a couple of those right now.
Right. Well, on the converse of that, you got to love the kids, though, that come in that are just so gritty and just freaking get on the floor, get dirty, whatever wall I'm going through it, coach, whatever.
They're me.
I might be undersized.
They're me. That was me. I'm like, I got no problem with them. Like, but you're me. Okay. You're going to find a role. Okay. You're going to find a role. And, like, I'm stealing this from somebody else, but you're going to find a role, but your role is not going to be the CEO. You're not going to be the CEO. That your entryway into is going to be the janitor, you know. And when I played pickup basketball, I would always get picked, but that's because I was going to play defense and I was going to rebound and I was going to set picks and I was going to do all the little things like, hey guys, I got the dirty jobs. Y'all be great. Let me do all the little dirty jobs. And there's times where those guys, they got to do it. Now, what I'll say is this though, here's the expectation in our program is like every single one of us is going to play like that.
Right.
Like that idea of being scrappy, that idea of doing all the little things, like that is not a, hey, I'm too good for that. Like we're all going to play like that. Now, being willing to do some of those little things, like that's got to be your entry point. Because like for me, my entry point into playing high school football was not that I was an amazing athlete. Shocking, I know. But it was not that I was an amazing athlete. It was that there were things that I was willing to do that other people weren't. That from whether it was spending time and understanding the checks and fields and getting other people lined up, but like I brought something to the table that was not that I was fast and big and any of those things. Like there were times where I brought something to the table. In fact, like one of my favorite Craig Howard stories is like we're playing a team, Lake City, Columbia, and we had played them a couple times, and I got to the point where I like as a high school player, like I knew exactly what their plays were going to be. Like I knew exactly what they were going to run. Like I told Coach Howard, my senior, like Coach, I know every single one of them. I can tell based on how they line up where the ball is going. And he goes, and I go, just take me out of the scheme and let me go. Let me wreak havoc. Like, let me go. And he's like, all right. And so we watch a game together and he's like, oh, you Toblin, you know it. So the next day he comes like, all right, coach. He goes over the plan. He goes, all right, Toblin's going to call out like where, you know, this stunt, that stunt, whatever. And then he's going to have Larry McGriff like run and make the tackle. And he's going to stand over there with a tight end. I was like, wait a minute. Like what? I thought I was the one who's going to like lead the nation in tackles this game. No. Larry's much better than you are. Larry's much better than you are.
And then now you're a coach.
Your job is to go tell Larry and let him make the play. And we played really well on defense. But like there's a role and that you won't always be on the Wheaties box, you know, but there's a role.
I know we hit on social media a little bit. Do you have a policy for your players or do you just educate?
I think the big one is just educate. I'm not going to lie. Like I know that we have to expand into that. It's important. It's how people are consuming their information. And to be honest with you, like it is how most of our parents, it's their entry point into our program. I don't love it. I don't love it.
But do you ever see a post from a kid and then like, hey, we got to have a conversation. This just doesn't look good.
So we talk
education.
We talk about how we want to handle opponents, how we want to handle and present ourselves and what's important. And it's about the team. It's about the team. It's about the team. There are times where people make mistakes and we have to go through and say like, hey, look, this is not who we are. This is not how we want to go. And like one of the things being at Bowls, we say like, look, like I shouldn't say this, but it's a big game because we're in it. Like we don't need to give them any extra.
Right.
Like, it's already a big game. Okay, it's already a big game. Like we don't need to give them any extra.
No bulletin board stuff.
Yeah, and we don't need to do any of that. And like let's make sure we just go about our business. And you know, we're not trying to win social media. Like we're not. And I think that's what happens.
Yeah,
is we go back to the self-esteem stuff. Like so much of it is like, well, look how many clicks it got. Look how many. It's the minute that is defining you, you're letting that decide. And so I try to de-emphasize it. I'm losing. Yeah, 100%.
Right.
Like, it's not even. I'm getting murdered.
Right.
Like I'm losing. But we try to educate. But I would obviously prefer to.
Yeah. Well, wrapping up, a couple of quick things. So, what would you say your core values are as coach?
So our mission is to help every member of the team become the best version of themselves, like on and off the field and every aspect of their life. And so like we want to use football as a vehicle to helping people and that to build a relationship, be part of their lives. And ultimately that's who we're going to be like, we'll never talk about scheme. Oh, we're going to do this like that. That doesn't matter to us. Like ultimately, if we're doing that's then we're aligned mission wise to who we want to be. Now, from a player standpoint, again, it wouldn't be necessarily scheme. It's going to be like who do we want to be? And so we want to be the hardest working team in America that smiles every day. Mm-hmm. That we know, like, you know, we want to work really, really hard, but we have to enjoy each other. We have to enjoy the process. We have to enjoy competing. We have to have smiles on our faces. And when we do, we work harder and we have better outcomes.
Right.
And so finding a way to allow joy to be a part of a really hard-working unit And I think that is kind of the secret sauce of
That's
where
awesome.
to try to be.
And wrapping it up, last question. What would you say to a young person that wants to be a high school coach, football coach? What path should they take, or how do they figure out that's what they want to do?
So, I mean, I think there's two things. I think that, one is that, there's so much knowledge out there now that I didn't have when I was growing up. I had to, even when I was a young coach, like the only way you could watch film was on the computer at the school. Like you couldn't take it home and like watch it. There was no, football, Twitter, social media. So there's so much ball to learn, consume as much as possible. But ultimately, it's not about the schematics. Anyone can learn that. Anyone can learn that. It is about the finding the right way to motivate and help kids along through the process. And so when I was in high school, I coached like Little League basketball. Like I coached little kids. Like when I was in college, like finding a way to help kids achieve their goals, push the right buttons, know when you need to be on them, like the rapport you have with them, when do they need a kick in the butt, when do they need an arm around their shoulder, like trying to go through that process, because that's you want to be able to take that journey with them, help them feel secure in what you're doing so that you can coach them, you earn the right to coach them. I think that's a big one, because that is the biggest difference between today and 15 years ago. Like it was my job to earn my coach's respect. He didn't have to know my name. Like it was my job to earn his respect. That is not the way it works anymore.
Right.
I have to earn the right to coach them.
Interesting.
And so I think that is the biggest one is as many chances as you can get, like work with kids.
Interesting. Well, it's clear you have a passion for kids and a passion for coaching. I don't know if you notice, you smile every time you talk about it. So you're definitely energized. So thank you for being on the podcast. This is great. I know our listeners are going to love to hear about what you're saying, and good luck in the season. It looks like you guys got a really good team. So we're excited to watch you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks. Thank you.
The Hometown Jax podcast is recorded and produced by First Coast Mortgage Funding, located in the heart of Jacksonville. Do you want to be our next guest? Visit our website at hometownjaxpodcast.com. We can't wait to hear your story.